day all. I remember once upon a time when I started reading the Bible and I opened up into the Old Testament and started reading some of the stories there. I was quite horrified by the nature of some of the stories that I found within the Bible. Just stories full of sexual sin, stories full of murder, and I was quite sure that I shouldn't have even been allowed to read such stories, and I was quite confused by it. Not long as I grew a little bit older, soon after that I remember reading the same stories but seeing it very differently. And suddenly I understood just the grace of God in using sinful people and including those stories in the Bible, so that there's a hope for us. Suddenly I could relate to those sinful stories and those sinful people a lot more, as I was much more aware of the sin within my own heart. And it spoke to me of a God who is gracious, a God who chooses to use us despite our sin, a God who loves us despite our sin, and a God who sent his son because he recognized our need for a savior. As we look at the lineage of Christ and we see the woman mentioned there, how significant that God in his grace would mention them in the lineage of Christ. It's just to show us that Christ came from sinful people to save sinful people, but he was not sinful himself. Imperfect woman like Tamara, like Rahab, like Ruth, and like Bathsheba point to us the need for a savior, a need for someone to come and take the wrath of sin and to restore and to save us. Sheila Lechmere-Ertel drew this incredible picture of a cracked jar, and shining out of that jar is light. And I thought there is no better picture to describe just what God does in using us in our cracked state, in our sinful state, but yet his light shines out of that. It points to a savior. When God chooses to use us, it speaks of who he is. When we are able to be changed and restored and walk in fruitfulness, it doesn't say anything about us, but it speaks of the light within us, our Savior, our God, who can take any situation. And we see those women's lives and we see the thread of God's restoration. And that same restoration is available to us, no matter what messiness we find ourselves in. Sin caused by others, sin caused by our own sinful nature, God can restore and he can use us. And he's not afraid of sin. He's not afraid of messiness. He sent his son for that very reason, to save us, to restore us, to redeem us. And just as we are those cracked jars, his light can shine through us. And I've seen in my own life that everything good in me is a reflection of my Savior. And it's an opportunity to say, it is my God within me that causes me to shine. There is nothing in me that is good, but God in me brings out good, because he is good. He is nothing but good. And we see his grace in threading together this beautiful story that just reminds us again of our need for Jesus Christ, of the gift that he gave us in Jesus Christ, and the hope that we have that he can use us and save us no matter where we find ourselves.